that he had. I believe his debate with Anthony Flew and the five proofs for God he had presented in that, and addressing those five proofs for God proofs and critically analyzing them to see whether they really stand up or whether they should really be taken quite so easily, because of course Craig has he's quite easy on his audience. He has a good way of reaching people, and many have called him a professional debater. He seems to have made a career out of spreading ideas, and I don't really deny that. I think he probably is a professional debater, and I think he does a lot more debate than he does research in his field. When we make these videos, I mean, I'll be honest, when I make videos about Craig, the cause of that video is to thoroughly demonstrate that there is a weakness in Craig's approach, and that he is a house of cards waiting to have the one at the bottom removed. James, when you made your videos on Craig, did you hope that, I mean, you knew Craig wouldn't respond. Did you hope that people would take your word over Craig's, or were you expecting people who are fans of Craig to come back and speak on his behalf?
I think most of my videos directed towards the subject matter of William Lane Craig are motivated by frustration, first and foremost. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's very much in the same way that you approach it. I mean, a lot of the shit that he says is really poorly based in logic, and a lot of times it's stuff that he should know better and probably does know better. And I mean, I think when I'm frustrated by things like that, the next thing that comes to mind is, how is it that anybody can actually listen to this guy? So then I make the video and say, this guy is saying this shit, and you people really actually think that? And here's a good reason why I don't think it's sound to think that. So those might be a little more reactionary than the majority of my videos, but I think in the end, out of those come some really interesting discussions with fellow YouTubers. Most of them not usually Craig fanboys, but guys sort of bridging the gap, playing devil's advocate for his points, and those lead to interesting conversations. But yeah, Craig's just
Wow. I know. I feel your frustration. Absolutely. It drives me insane listening to him. When I said he was easy on his audience, he would not be easy on an audience of atheists. I do think that Craig likes to appeal to this proof by verbosity or argumentum verbosium, something I found on Wikipedia under logical fallacies, whereby he loads such a phenomenal amount of stuff into every sentence that it's just too laborious to untangle, and so it's often allowed to slip by. Andy, your series on Craig is radically different, or some of your videos on Craig are radically different from what I would have expected, not from yourself, but from the YouTube atheists in general, because you have found material that he's put out, which I'd never seen on YouTube, but material where he exposes weaknesses in other areas. Does it upset you that Craig will probably never see these, or do you hope that he will see these?
I don't really care if he sees them. One of the things that frustrates me most about Craig, and the reason why I make those videos, is because I've had probably dozens or probably hundreds of conversations about William Lane Craig with people online, particularly about cosmology. And his cosmology is horrible. I mean, it's really outdated. It's like 30 to 50 years old.
Sure.
And it's a shame that people will essentially learn about the Big Bang and stuff like that from William Lane Craig, who has a clear agenda and a clear bias. I think I was reading a paper about his theory of time, his presentism, like the idea that only the present moment exists. And he wrote a whole book trying to get this right with relativity. And I was reading a paper by someone critiquing that book, a philosopher in the history of science, and they essentially said, if you're trying to learn about relativity, don't use Dr. Craig's history of relativity because it's extremely biased. And I think that's really what frustrates me most about him. And that's essentially why I make those videos, so people can, maybe learn that things have happened in, past 25 years that Craig is essentially leaving out. Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't really care if he listens to if he watches them or listens to them, but if people know more about it, then they obviously won't buy into his arguments.
Do you think that, I mean, you've probably, I'm sure, like the rest of us, Andy, you've probably encountered some of William Lane Craig's attack dogs who prowl YouTube waiting for criticism of Craig. One that comes to mind is Rational Response Guy, who, contrary to his name, just fills his comments with profane insults, essentially. I've completely forgotten the question. It's left my head. In the meantime, I'll come back to you, Andy, with the question that just popped out of my head. But in the meantime,
sounds good.
I'll just ask you, I will ask you to be brief on this subject because I know that this is going to set you off. William Lane Craig, why make those videos about Craig, and what is the hope that those videos are going to achieve?
Why would you ask me to be brief on that? We spend literally hours lambasting the man. Okay, when I first encountered William Lane Craig, I'd heard quite a lot about him, but never seen any videos on him. I'd never seen any footage or material from him personally. And because I'd heard that he was something special, and even though I knew that he couldn't actually have proper proof for God, because nobody can, otherwise by now science would have changed and somebody would have gone, oh yeah, that works. I kind of thought it would be something better than it was, and so I went and found, it was quite by chance I found the debate with Flew. It might actually have been through researching Anthony Flew that I discovered William Lane Craig. I've forgotten. And I was so just disappointed because I had thought he might be one of the good guys who makes good arguments, or kind of up to a point makes a good argument, but he made every fallacy you've ever heard of, but in a good voice, in a sweater vest. That was it. He just said all the wrong things that all these people say, and it baffled me that people were taken in by it, which is why I made Craigening. And the thing that particularly annoyed me about Craig, which is why I use the clip in I think every video I make about Craig, and even some that aren't about Craig, it's not even so much that he just hacks logic all the time. It's the fact that he opened his video with an appeal to logic, and then broke logic so many times in so many ways. And he knows something about philosophy. He is an intelligent man in some ways. He's a very good writer. He's a very good speaker. Ignore the actual subject. He's a very, he's an eloquent, well-written man. And I just don't understand how you can appeal to logic and then make emotional claims like, I don't know, saying that deep down we know that some things are just wrong, or using the experiential argument for God 15 minutes after appealing to logic. I simply don't understand. And as Tom has mentioned, he's very eloquent, very loquacious, and that means people are going to be taken in, obviously, by what he says. They're not going to question it. So what I want is, I don't think I'm even trying to convince people or trying to convince Craig if he comes across the videos. There is frustration in my response, but also it's frustration that has as its motive to point out with clarity and precision exactly why William Lane Craig is such a poor debater and such a poor philosopher, and that's why I do it.